Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin On Rugby podcast. Joining me this week is someone back after working with friend of the pod, Alvin Nolan, to produce the excellent Mother Rucker podcast covering the recent World Cup. He's now making his 43rd Harpin Pod appearance. A warm welcome back to Mr. Rugby Keno himself, Keno Muller.
Thanks, William, for having us back, Jeff. Jeez, 43. I'm getting up there in the numbers now.
I know. You'll be hitting 50 before long. You know that's some achievement. You haven't
Pushing
quite
my,
made the Kigo numbers yet, though.
yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to catch up with Kigo. He's a kind
No.
of the podcast version of a Wooden Club man. Like,
That's it. That's it. That's it. There you go. Okay. Well, listen, I suppose we can't put it off any longer. Let's turn our attention to our feature match of the week. Here's a generic 80-word summary of how things went. Ireland fell 24-13 to South Africa in the Quilter Nations Series, undone by indiscipline and scrum dominance. James Ryan's early red card compounded sin bins for Sam Prendergast, Jack Crowley, Andrew Porter, and Paddy McCarthy. Despite Dan Sheehan's try and spirited defence, the Springboks struck through Damien Willemse, Kobus Rainak, and Sasha Feinberg, Emma Ngozulu, plus a penalty try. And Andy Farrell praised his side's resilience, noting they edged the second half 6-5 and highlighted valuable learnings ahead of a Six Nations opener against France. Now, obviously, we're going to go into a little bit more detail than that. To start us off this week, Keno would like to harp on a topic he has titled Cards, Chaos, and the Carley Factor.
yeah, it's fair play for trying to summarize that match in 80 words because, frankly, it's impossible. You can't really do it. That was the, it was just bonkers. I've never seen a rugby game like it. Um, It's just like scale of content of chaos throughout it was just literally from the kickoff all the way through to 80 minutes. I mean, a game which Ireland give out 18 penalties. I mean, normally we're aiming for kind of half that. In fairness, we've not been great this autumn in terms of keeping those numbers down, but 18 is insane. And then for that to result in five cards. Five separate cards, one of which was a 20-minute red.
And actually
Um,
could have been more, in
and it
fairness.
could have been more.
Yeah.
So to play that 80-minute game essentially with a man down for an hour of that, between them all, and often actually they layered up on top of each other. But despite all of that, the possession and territory was pretty much evenly split between the two sides. It doesn't make any sense. Um, let's see. I suppose we talk the cards. We absolutely have to own some of these. The Ryan Red, absolutely no issues with that. It was a bad clean out. Not helped by the fact that he was literally stopped at the edge of the ruck and then decides to go for it and doesn't paint the right picture. Like, there might have been some mitigation, bit of a height change at the last second, maybe. But if your hand this is what they're looking for now. They're looking for where your hand palm is pointed, whether it's pointed towards the opposition goal line or your own, and whether your hand is open or closed. If your hand is closed and pointed towards your own goal line, you're in trouble. It's going to be called as a shoulder charge, rather than a tackle and go under that. So yeah, no arguments there. That was stone cold 20-minute red. Possibly lucky it didn't go full red, frankly. The Prendergast yellow for team infringements, again, yeah, it's kind of hard to argue with. There were really, really huge numbers of infringements in that goal line defense. What was it, between 34 and 36 minutes, I think. Um, the Crowley yellow, that was done. You get away with that in AIL maybe where there isn't a telly-ref. But if there's, kind of five or six cameras on you, you are not going to get away with that unless there's maybe another three lads on top of that rock. Then maybe you get away with it. The Porter yellow, yeah, he was going down on the scrum every time, and with in the scrum interpretation that was being applied, yeah, kind of you had to give that yellow eventually. To be honest, it could have probably gone to either himself, or the other side. It was not a good day at the scrum. I'll get into that in more detail after this one. Um, so yeah, I mean, and there's a penalty try off the back of that as well. So those cards directly contributed to like 19 first half points for South Africa. Um, and that was the game. There was really no coming back from that, especially without the functioning ball. But we then went and won the second half. That makes no sense. It's chaos. It's still chaos. Um, and back to cards plus chaos, and then or no cards plus chaos was the non-call on Sasha Feinberg Mngundulu. I have never heard a referee talk themselves out of a card so completely as that. I think Razzie's comments and the previous cards that they've been given in the Autumn Internationals really got into Carley's head on that, and he twisted himself into a pretzel shape, making sure that was called back to just a penalty. So honestly, our cards, yeah, can't argue with those. But the lack of consistency grates there, I have to say. Honestly, don't know that it would have affected the final result, given how I think a bit more concentration from them. They would have scored more off their scrum dominance. So yeah, I mean, it's just impossible to try and capture all of this in one go. But it was an absolutely insane match.
Yeah, there's just so much to go through. I mean, just personally, from my point of view, my headspace going into this was like it was a cup final, right? We were either going to win it or we're not. So the way the game transpired, and after the red card after the non-call and then the red card, and then we're losing penalty try right on the break, going into the second half with Tome. I mean, the game was lost in my head, and it was just disappointment. I couldn't see it. I was just negative. And it was luckily I have the Harpin WhatsApp group with you guys, because you were all pointing out that there was gutsy displays out there, and I just couldn't see it because I was sort of clouded by the disappointment. But it is true. It is true, and we'll talk some more about how strongly we defended. I think you came up with a brilliant an analogy in the group that it was sort of a Helm's Deep kind of analogy.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it felt like. So apologies to South African fans for comparing them to orcs, but I think Razzie wouldn't mind being compared to Sauron. I think he likes the bad guy image himself anyway. But listen, no, but it's just the way it went. I think from an Irish point of view, now Carley, the referee, is not going to care what happened in Chicago, but from an Irish point of view, for that call to go the way it did compared to what happened to Tyke Byrne in Chicago at the very same stage of the game, and both of them went against Ireland. I mean, you said he talked himself out of it. His exact words were, he doesn't have time to bring his arm up. It's like, how...
Which is odd, given that he's actually going actively into a tackle situation.
But it's classic. He was, like you say, he was looking for a way out, and he sort of made a sort of an off ramp for himself to go penalty only. And I think in any situation you would have seen that a card. Now, like you say, could that have made a difference in the game? I mean, I think it could have. That the extra. The extra man could have done for Ireland. I mean, but you look at the way the game went from Ireland's point of view. Even before that, the first Irish attack, Visa jackaled a penalty. Now, you could say whether or not that was a proper penalty or not in itself. You could argue that in itself, but
it wasn't.
No, exactly. He kind of came in from the side. But that said, if you're not, even the fact that he got over the ball at all, do you know what I mean? It's like we were if you're going to play against South Africa, you're going to have to watch the ball and go into every contact with clear outs ready to go.
Especially in the 22.
Absolutely. And then the first South Africa attack, they scored pretty much. They created the space. That was still 15 on 15 then. They created the space quickly out wide. They created a 4-on-2. I think it was Tommy O'Brien and Sam. I think Tommy sort of covered for Sam. I think it was sort of Sam's man, but Tommy came over to cover him, and then the try is scored pretty much by then, because now it's at whatever, it's 3-on-1 outside. So that kind of start didn't help, but still, we managed. We were always in it. And what was frustrating about the Ryan card as well is that it wasn't just the incident itself, and it was a silly clear out by him. I think you're playing the Springboks and you have to bring that extra bit of aggression. You know you do. And Leinster have had these games against South African teams as well over the years, so we've gotten more used to them. We've gotten more used to being in that mentality. But sometimes it can get the better of you. You do a clear out, and you just went too hard into it. And but that came after Sam's thing hit the post. Sam's kick had hit the post, and we actually scored a try. That negated a possible try as well. So it was that extra element to it. If you look at, and you said it yourself, you look at all the South African points, they came from mistakes that we made. Second half, we got the first score of the second half, even though we came out of the break with 12 players. We ended up getting the first score of the second half, and then straight from that restart, although we had a brilliant game otherwise, that's the one that Cian Prendergast drops. He played really well otherwise. He's the one who came on for the James Ryan red card. He came on to replace him and played a longer shift than he probably would have expected, and did really well. Just that one mistake, and that led to a score as well. Pretty much. So when you go back over the game, even though the scrum dominance and the cards and just the constant penalties, and we couldn't buy our way out of our own half. And another reason in the first half, the second quarter of the first half, we kept kicking out in the full, and we just could not get out of our own half for love nor money. It was it, and those kicks were just fractions in it. But that's if it's a big cup final marquee match like this, especially against the world champions when they're on this kind of form, everything has to go right, and you cannot afford to make any kind of mistakes, and they're going to punish you.
Gonna quote Kigo here. If you go with the Kings, you best not miss.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one for the ages.
That bit off.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was, it was kind of frustrating. And, I've seen comments from Irish fans, oh, don't blame the ref. It was our thing. It was we were crap. I mean, it's, two things can be true. I just think, I don't think it was it was disappointing, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been, I think is the way to look at it. Because I mean, like you say, going into a second half, leading by, 12 points, and with only 12 Irish players on the field, it could, no out half, no recognized out half to even kick off the second half. It was, it could have been a lot worse for sure. Well, elsewhere in the November series, Japan edged Georgia 25-23 thanks to a very late penalty. New Zealand overwhelmed Wales 52-26 with Rico Ioane among the try scorers. Paolo Garbisi and Monty Ioane guided Italy to a 34-19 victory over Chile, and France outlasted Australia 48-33 in Paris, including a worldie chip and chase try from Bio Barry. On Sunday, Duhan and Finn Russell led Scotland to an emphatic whitewash of Tonga, while England survived a late scare to stay ahead of the Pumas 27-23 at Twickenham. This brings the November series to an end, bar the traditional out-of-window match at the Principality Stadium next week. And on behalf of all here at Harpin Manor, I'd like to extend some preemptive thoughts and prayers to our Celtic cousins ahead of the Springboks' arrival. But now we must return to the Aviva on Saturday night. And, well, Kino, I suppose we had to harp on the scrums eventually, didn't we?
Yeah, it's hard to get away from, really. It was the kind of the tail of the game. It was the top and the bottom of it. It was really where South Africa showed their difference. Frankly, kind of, yes, they had some wonderful moments in attack, specifically for that kind of try in the first half. But really, it was their scrum was the main point of difference between the two sides. And by God, it was a difference. It was a decisive power mismatch, kind of compounded by, I suppose, the referee's interpretation. But nonetheless, it's not to take anything away from what is an absolutely insanely powerful weapon that they have. I mean, strange, yeah. Unsurprisingly, they're 100% on their own scrum. They got 6 scrum penalties out of Ireland. It was really the platform. It gave them a platform to use, but frankly, they kind of didn't need any of the scrum penalties that they managed to get out of us. They actually just kept going with the ball. Though they didn't score as much often, given how camped in our 22 they were and how many scrums they had and how many players we had sent off. It was kind of surprising. I think the issues with the scrum for us, I know Porter took the first card and the most of the penalties. But I was having a quick look around. I'm not a scrum guru myself. I know a couple of bits, but I think you really kind of have to have served proper time in the front row to really know your onions about it. And kind of there were multiple people who'd analysed it and said that there was Furlong was having issues on his side. There was struggling with his angle, bind under pressure. And then the obvious ones are things like, I mean, our second row, I think it's about them to, is, they had a powerful second row and then they had a very powerful, scrum to bring off the bench as well. And the timing of that was just absolutely relentless. I mean, fair play to them. That is actually one of the best coach uses of a bench I've seen in a long time. It's completely heartless, but brilliant. You have to actually applaud that. Um, Historically, I suppose our scrum has been pretty decent over the last while, but we do seem to still have these lingering issues against the big power build teams. Your South Africa, your France, England traditionally, anyway. It kind of depends on which way they go at a given point in time, but they've all got kind of big scrums, and that still seems to be causing us issues. I kind of think that long term, I mean, I can't think of any young props that aren't already being kind of brought into being involved in the Ireland side, either be through camp or through the Ireland A's/15s. But I do think we missed Big Joe, to put it mildly, to put it bluntly. Um, we needed that bit more ballast on the tight head side to stand any kind of a chance, really. Um, so we maybe need to look more at options like him, like say Edwin and Dogbo. If he can stay fit, he's a real possibility there. And I would like to see him get a run in the Six Nations, Italy, Wales, either off the bench or start him off the bench in one, and maybe even give him a start in the other, because we need to put some bulk in, and I don't see it happening in the front row, and I don't see it happening in the back row with the way things are at the moment. So, although there are some options, I might get into it. I think in the bonus part, there's some options down the road, maybe in the back row.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a lot. It was a long day in the scrum, and but you're up against the best, and I agree. I think a lot of the issues were. I mean, I'm no expert either, but I think a lot of the issues weren't just from the front row. I think it was the power coming from the second row as well that made a big difference. I mean, Porter was just full on collapsing every single time, both legs going back straight down right after the hit. He kind of gave Carley no choice. I mean, Carley basically set up camp on his side of the scrum all the time, which was one thing as well. But it was, I mean, it just kept on happening, and he kept once he's called it in the first few minutes. He has to keep on calling it, but it almost got ridiculous. Second half, I think there was a couple in the second half that I didn't see any difference. There was still a collapse, but he just said, "Just play on. The ball's there," And also because South Africa had so many put-ins, we were kind of okay on our own put-ins. We did have a plan, straight in, straight out. That wasn't too much of a problem, but we didn't have enough put-ins to make it any good. So, but the fact of the matter is, as we said earlier in the pod as well, even without the scrums, even with those scrums staying exactly the way they were with the penalties and stuff, there was still a way we could have won that game if we hadn't made mistakes in other areas, just basic mistakes. Of course, it doesn't make it a lot easier, but as we've said before in this November, when the line out doesn't work, we've no hope of winning, no hope of getting on the scoreboard. Even this game, there was one great try that Dan Sheehan tried. That little passage of play was brilliant. It was like the try we got against New Zealand in the first half. When the lineout's working, everything's clicking, and it looks good. People are supporting each other. There's good lines. Gibson's Park's doing his thing in the 22, and they're able to finish. But so we need the lineout to work, and that's been getting better over the past couple of weeks. But with the scrums, I mean, it was just it wasn't happening. Like you say, we're going to need more options. Paddy McCarthy came on and did really well around the loose. Anyway, he was, he got carded as well. He was sort of a victim of that. He got his 3 strikes and you're out as well. I think when he came on, but in the end he went as well. But and there's other options coming through. There's Jack Boyle and we've got Clarkson and all these different options. But is it like you say? Is it a case of, are we going to actually match these countries in the scrum, or are we going to have to find other ways to get around them? And I think that I think that is something we need to look at. I don't know, is it that much? I remember this disastrous game against England in Twickenham years ago where we were losing as many scrums. Yeah, I think everyone remembers that. But that was a game you're always going to lose when you lost that many scrums. But the game's different now, and Ireland is definitely different now. We've improved in other areas, and we've got more options in other areas. I agree. We could. There's definitely a Joe McCarthy size hole in that team. We've been talking about how many options we have at different positions, but I think Joe is one that's almost irreplaceable at the moment, unless we can bring on some other players. We're kind of going with second rows now who, these 5-6 kind of hybrid kind of players. Like if Joe was fit, we probably have Ty Byrne at 6, that kind of thing. Possibly another position like that, maybe is Gibson Park at 9, but staying with the scrums, it's just a question of, it does have to improve, but we're going to France in February, and it's more. I think the biggest worry is just how we can just execute the game plan we have. Do things in the right area. Obviously, you have to improve the scrum, but are we going to get our players to the level of South Africa?
Really need to. What you need is kind of close to parity. You don't need kind of full parity. You don't need to be able to throw up a tablecloth worthy scrum against every opposition. What you need to be able to do is to get your own ball on your own put in,
Yeah.
and get maybe kind of 80+% on their ball, just be able to hold it up kind of for most of the game. And that it stops them from having too much of a platform, where, they can kick the line. And especially with our kind of recent line out woes, although the defensive line out was pretty decent, you don't want to be giving line out access in the 22. That is kind of the primary platform for scores for people these days. So you don't want to let them generate too much. But if you can keep it kind of 20% or below in their scrums, and you're kind of getting close to 100 on your own, then that'll do. What you can't have is a day like yesterday. Like, there were other issues. There were definitely issues with their discipline. But there are ongoing issues with our attack. We're not incisive enough in the 22. We need to generate more 22 entries, and we need to be better at executing them when we do get them. But even if you do fix those, if South Africa had been more switched on, like, they could have made more hay out of those scrums. But they didn't. It was almost like they had blood in their nostrils, and they were just like, no, more scrum, more scrum. And that was all they were focused on. They kind of forgot there was a score to the game.
Well, there was a point in the second half where the likes of Creel were coming up, and they were having full on discussions at the back of the scrum. They're like, "Can we have the ball, please?" It was almost like the back system. That's a classic conversation anyway. But you think a team as focused as the Springboks would have had this kind of sorted, and wouldn't be going through this on the pitch. It was like, and when it comes to the backs as well, I mean, their halfbacks weren't great in the first quarter either. They looked very, the two of them, 9 and 10, Raynock and Sasha, there was shaky kicks. They weren't getting their range on their high balls and stuff like that, and they were making mistakes as well. So it wasn't all great for them. But no, listen, it was a frustrating but a really, really strange test match all around. Just a few more points I have here. Finally on the scrums, it was just ironic. The very last scrum of the game ended up in a free kick to Ireland. I just thought that was ironic. Ironic way to sign off. There were some players, like we talked about Crowley's, that silly yellow card he gave away. he did well towards the end. That escape from his own from the try line was amazing to get to the 22. That was a crucial moment of the game as well. It helped keep their scoreboard down as much as anything else we did in that game. We talked about Paddy McCarthy and Cian Prendergast having good shifts. I mean, that's by McCarthy's come out of nowhere, really. We thought he'd be breaking into the Leinster, looking to maybe get onto the fringes of the Leinster team this year. And there he is, he's starting test matches now. And he's definitely in the frame, and he definitely earned it. I mean, whatever about the scrums, but his a couple of pinches, counter rucks and jackals and all doing all this stuff around the park. It was the kind of thing Joe was doing when he just came into the Leinster team, and he was just this confidence. I belong here, and playing the A game straight from the off like he belongs. So it's great to see. Let's see, what else have I got here? Oh yeah, Sam. We're talking about their halfbacks. Not a bad outing from Sam overall. And I think you pointed out something about his tackle stats.
He was the third highest tackler for Ireland. And missed one. So he was 11 for 12, and that gave him third spot on the Irish squad for tackles made. Make of that what you will.
I suppose
that one open to personal interpretation.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was it was a tough day at the office all around, but I think the biggest takeaway from us was, number one, it was the world champions. They're a squad that have been together since July. And we're, our excuses, this is our fourth game in 4 weeks. The excuses over undercooked and all this thing should be out the window, but we still had a lot of challenges going into this. We knew the Springboks were in better form. We had more issues. And of course they've got this thing where they really wanted to beat us specifically. I heard a lot of comments saying that they didn't just want to win. They wanted more to beat us. And that does make a difference, and it really does motivate you as well. I think it might motivate the French as well when we play on their turf, given how it went the last time we were over there as well. So it's all about how we respond. I know. It's all about how we respond. But listen, there was loads of talking points. We probably left out most of them as well. But we've covered the scrum, we've covered the cards in the first half. I think they were the main talking points. And I think the takeaway is it was a game we could have won, and it didn't, for me anyway, it just didn't feel like it at the time. It's like, oh, this is another game that's gone. And I think I had it in my head that it was going to be a 50 burger for South Africa in the end anyway. And then you look at the end, and we actually won the second half, which is bizarre. Yeah. It was a mad game of rugby altogether.
And we held them to the lowest margin that they've had in the autumn internationals.
There you go.
The other ones, they were missing a player, and they've put higher scores on than the one we were missing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players of different stripes and various points.
Absolutely bizarre.
Including 2 out halves simultaneously. That was.
And were we at 13? The Dan Sheehan try, were we at 13 for that? Were we? Or 14?
We were at 13 men. Sheehan try. We were. Yeah.
But so listen, so you there's no accounting for that, I suppose. But listen, we'll leave that there for now. But we did get some comments on our Facebook page. It's pretty much the same as what we've been saying. Yeah. For example, we had Greg Kelly saying if Sasha gets the yellow card, he should have gotten, then it changes the opening 20 minutes. Ryan may have ended his stint as a frontliner with his stupidity. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Christy O'Connor, I can't disagree with any of our cards except that Ryan's could have been a straight red. Sasha should have been carded, though. We were panicky when on the ball. Took us forever to get out of our own half. The better team won in the end, but other than the scrum, I don't think South Africa were all that great. That's Christy O'Connor. And if you want to get involved in the conversation yourself, head over to our Facebook page after the full-time whistle in Leinster and Ireland matches. Okay, look, we're going to leave it there for now. Many thanks to Keno for joining us. Looking forward to having you back on again soon.
Certainly, my pleasure.
And as ever, be sure to stay tuned to Harpin On Rugby on all the socials during the week, starting with our bonus chat posting on YouTube on Tuesday, where we'll be harping on Ireland's November takeaways. Then our 80-plus column, where we try to look at the wider rugby world, and that posts every Wednesday over on Substack. In the meantime, please take extra special care this week, in particular, to stay safe, everyone. If you know, you know. Slán.